Thursday, January 26th, 2017. I'm your host, Sarah Mantle. We have a great show in store for you today. Town officials want to make sure our youth are not forgotten. We're going to get details on how Town Manager Mark Ells is working to make sure that happens. We're going to hear about issues facing Precinct 10 with Town Councilor Sarah Cushing. And some state lawmakers could see a very hefty pay raise. We're going to learn more about that with State Representative Randy Hunt. And I can tell you, it is not the state representatives that will see that boost on this episode of Barnstable Today. Now let's get a look at today's top headlines. Owners of the Craigville Motel are one step closer to reopening after being closed in 2015 due to health code violations and for housing long-term tenants. The issue went before the Board of Health this week. Town Attorney Ruth Weil says staff would like to see a final inspection take place before that license will be released.
We're close, but not quite there, and at least from the staff's perspective. I think Mr. Connor is going to speak from his client's perspective. There have been no final inspections by health, fire, or building, and the consensus among staff is that the license should not be released until there are final inspections. There is also a report by structural engineer, which had some recommendations which staff would like to incorporate as part of your motion so that those recommendations are complied with. They involve periodic inspections of the foundation, etc. And I think I have copies, and Mr. Connors has copies of that as well. The other issue is that the franchisor, I never get the or and the E right, but I think the Wyndham Group, which is going to be the franchisor of this entity, will not inspect until the facility is open. So after 30 days after the facility is open, we are recommending that an inspection take place, and if there are any problems with that inspection, that action will be taken as a result of that.
The Board of Health ultimately voted to release the motel's license once a final health inspection is complete and no problems are found. A grant will help the Sturgis Library fund an interactive history lesson. The Mid-Cape Cultural Council awarded $500 to the library. The library was selected because of its high levels of programs and community services that they offer. The library first opened in August of 1867. That makes 2017 their 150th anniversary. Cape Cod Commission staff hope to get resident feedback as they work to improve zoning in Hyannis. To do that, the Commission has scheduled several meetings regarding planning in and around Hyannis. There is a meeting scheduled for February 6th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the Barnstable Senior Center. The meeting is open to the public. All are encouraged to attend. The town's finance department releases a 10-year financial forecast. That forecast allows town officials to plan beyond just the next fiscal year. The report identifies long-term imbalances so that strategies to counteract those can be developed. Residents can view the 10-year financial forecast by visiting town.barnstable.ma.us. Up next, we're going to chat with Town Manager Mark Ells. At our recent town council meeting last Thursday, Mark Milne, of course, made a budget presentation to town council. To talk more about that, we have our town manager, Mark Ells. How did that budget presentation go? I know it was a joint meeting with the town council as well as the school committee.
It was. It's our annual meeting where they come together. We obviously work together on our budget, and it's actually part of our budget schedule and really commences the formal part of our budget process in a sense. Mark Milne gave an update. It was very much focused on past, present, and future for our budget. He tries to give them a look at what's happened last fiscal year, what's going on this fiscal year, and where are we going in the future. I think his presentation has been and continues to be very informative. It really lays out a clear picture of what our challenges are, but what our capabilities are as well. And I think we have many capabilities. I think we're in a very good financial position to move forward with the priorities in our community, both for our schools and our municipal government. I thought it was pretty interesting if you have a chance to look at the dialogue about his 10-year projections in one of his slides. actually reflected upon what he projected our revenues would be 10 years ago, because there's a lot of discussion about the accuracy of projections, whether they're good for 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year, and everybody thinks 10 years off. He was pretty close. He was less than a percentage off of his projections 10 years ago for where we would be now. So
Wow.
we're going to track him every year now and see if
now
we
we're
can
holding
hold
to
with
it.
that. But he does a really good job of being intelligently conservative as to what our expenses and what our revenues will be in each of the major categories. Obviously, real estate taxes are our primary source of revenue, but there are many others. And from that, we're able to do some pretty good financial planning and accomplish those priorities that our council and our public set for us. So
Yeah, no one really has a crystal ball, but it is helpful to plan for the future and to try and have a forecast at least. I know we should say too, Mark Milne and the finance department has won many awards for both its budget presentation and its budget document that it presents to the public. So
I agree. I don't think there's any better than our
Yeah.
finance director, not in our state certainly, and that's no slight against anybody else who's out there. He does a fantastic job, as his staff does. Also, the council needs to be complimented. They establish a strategic plan for us, which allows us to focus on the priorities of the community. We have limited resources, even though we do have solid resources. We have limited resources, so we have to make sure that when they're allocated in the appropriate manner.
And of course, all of those documents are available. If our residents are listening to us talk about some of these documents, they're available on the town's website for them to review if they have any questions about where the budget stands. So that's good to know for them. Also, want to talk a little bit about how the town is partnering with the high school and the YMCA to work with the youth in our community.
Absolutely. It's a great opportunity for us to really make sure that all of our young people have somewhere to go, something to do, and in this case, the most recent efforts that we're working on will even lead them to a potential job. So what we're doing is we're working with our high school and our school superintendent, and in this case our middle school, to talk about how do we program and coordinate programming between our schools and our rec department to make sure that there is the opportunity for every child obviously to participate in our schools and then to move over to the various programs that are out there. We want them busy, we want them making good decisions, and if we can help them in that process, great. And we have to offer things that are of interest to them. So every year I hear from our recreation director, Patty Machado, that there's been this trend of losing lifeguards. And we need, what's Cape Cod about? I mean, if nothing else, we should have people that know our water, whether it's boating or swimming or, however they recreate. So we said, why don't we team up with the Y and take the kids from the high school who are interested, anybody, whether they swim or not, they'll either learn to swim. If they swim, they'll continue to swim. Do it from the end of the swim season, which ends probably in February, till Memorial Day. Offer a program so not only do they learn to swim, and they don't have to be on the swim team, anybody. They have to be old enough, though, so we're looking at 13 and older probably. They get CPR, they'll get first aid, and then they'll get lifeguard training, and at the end of that process, they will be able to get a lifeguard job if they're at that level, to be able to be a lifeguard aide or a junior lifeguard. And then from there they can progress to be a lifeguard for the town, and we begin to replenish those lifeguards that we're losing in the program, as well as offer one small program. Kids hop on the buses are already taking the swim team, now they take another group of kids, maybe some of them swimmers, maybe not, up to the Y. From 2:30 to 4, we're talking with the Y about making available the swim time. And now we're looking at the Youth and Community Center being open once basketball season's over, so that kids can go down and they can use the various facilities we have there. And we'll be talking with the schools or perhaps the RTA, because there's bus stops along the way, to get the kids from there down to the Youth and Community Center. So it really allows our youth to be active, using our facilities, all our kids to be active. If they have financial means, great, there'll be fees. If they don't, we'll have programs so that they can participate in this. So everybody can participate. And, it's our goal, I think it's all of our goal, to be able to say, or to hear our children say, hey, Mom, I'm going to the youth center. That's a positive thing. I want every kid in the community to think of our youth center that way. It's there. It's our community's youth center, but it's certainly the young people of our community's youth center, and I want them there using it. So this is one little step toward that, and it's wonderful to have partners like our schools and our Y in the community.
So important to keep those kids busy, like you said. So many studies have been done that show keeping kids active and involved in extracurricular activities really does help reduce that drug and alcohol use. So very important.
It just helps them to make good decisions.
Yep.
And if we have consistent messaging with our schools, with our rec program, with our YMCA, it'll just give them another leg up to be able to go where they want to in life, and that's what we want for them. So.
Great. Well, thank you for stopping by and updating us on everything that's happening in the town manager's office. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Our guest today, of course, town manager Mark Ells. A project to make Marston's Mills a more connected village that is safer for pedestrians is in the works. To learn more about that and other issues, we chat with Town Councilor Sarah Cushing. Precinct 10 in Marston's Mills. Town Councilor Sarah Cushing joins us now to talk about things that are happening in your precinct, but also things that are taking place and a priority for the council town-wide. Yeah. So what are the things you're focusing on for Precinct 10?
So Precinct 10, one of the big projects we have going on and have for the last couple of years is the revisioning, if you will, of the village center. We finally refer to it as the Cash Market intersection is really kind of the ground zero for the project work. And the genesis of that was to allow safer travel for cars and for pedestrians. If you've traveled through that particular intersection, you know that it's very unsafe.
There aren't really any sidewalks, are there?
No. There's a little bit of sidewalk on one side of the street. There's a little bit of sidewalk getting down to Mill Pond, but with the advent of the new light over on 28, traffic really just flies through the village center because it's a connector from the Mid-Cape Highway over to Route 28. So traffic calming was very important, restructuring that so that it was safe for cars to pass through, so it was clear, is clear, and then also for pedestrians, as well as building out additional opportunity for parking so that those businesses that are there can have more of a pedestrian flow and street traffic and things of that nature. So,
well, Marston's Mills is such a cute village, and let's face it, you can walk from the library if you wanted to, say, the Plum Porch, maybe the Salon in the Mills or the Mills Restaurant, all of these places. But it's really difficult right now to do that, even though it's within walking distance, because it's just not user-friendly. It's not pedestrian-friendly.
It's not at all. And the goal of this project is to allow more pedestrian access through sidewalks, through crosswalks, traffic calming at that village center. The town also recently purchased a piece of property that's sort of behind the library and behind Liberty Hall that will allow for hopefully some open space and a parking lot opportunity that will really join Main Street and Route 149. So there's a nice flow from Liberty Hall, from the school property, as well as from the library down to the village center.
Yeah, so important for users. Throughout the planning portion of this project, I know the town officials have really worked and reached out to the village groups as well as residents to get their feedback. Do you think that was really imperative in designing the project and making sure it works for everybody?
Absolutely. And I have to give credit to the Growth Management Department and DPW, several iterations of design concepts with the consultant to include feedback from business owners as well as residents, as well as people who just travel through there, to make sure that you can't meet everybody's needs. That's the reality of it. But what the goal in mind is to make it a lot safer for people and a lot more user-friendly for our businesses, so that they can continue to thrive and hopefully even grow. So there were several public meetings, several meetings with the Village Association to really get it to the point where it is now. And Water just put in a new pipe along 149. They're still somewhat under construction. That was kind of the first phase, and then shovels will hopefully go in the ground in the springtime.
That's exciting. Do you know how long that project will take to complete at all?
I think that's a little bit of a moving target. I think we're hoping for completion in the fall before winter sets in, but I don't know the answer to that. I haven't talked to DPW in a while to figure out what that might look like, but hopefully it will take 4 to 6 months.
Very exciting. Cannot wait to see the end result of that. And I'm sure many people will be very happy in the village.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you too about town council priorities for the year. It's a brand new year. Really coming in, taking things head on, a new council president. What are some of the major priorities for council this year?
Yep, so we had our strategic planning session at the end of September, which was a little bit later than I think the council has typically done strategic planning before. I think the goal is once you get a new council in, some new councilors, and then also with the election of new leadership to do your strategic planning at that point. But we were a little bit delayed in the process this past year. So we did that at the end of September, and the two major priorities are zoning, really looking at zoning across all of the villages. Zoning has been a little bit of a patchwork over the last several years without really kind of a 30,000-foot view goal, strategic, what are we trying to accomplish, make it user-friendly for commercial and residential owners to be able to grow, expand, and really taking a hard look at it. It's going to be a lot of work because even from street to street in one village, there might be different zoning. So that was a definite priority that we heard loud and clear through that planning process. And the town manager, I think, knows the task ahead with his staff to take a look at that. Additionally is housing. We know that housing is a big issue, not only here in Barnstable, but also across Cape Cod. The Growth Management Department worked with a consultant and produced a housing production plan, which the town manager is going to be filing up at Beacon Hill soon, and really outlines what our goals are. And we know that allowing opportunity for seniors to age in place to provide and allow for growth of housing to meet that need, as well as for our demographic, the young families who need 2, 3, 4 bedroom either rentals or homes within the constraints of what our economy will pay. We need to kind of come up with a solution, and that zoning ties in very, very strongly with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if there are regulations that don't allow for certain things to develop, it's pretty tough to get additional living situations for individuals. Well, thank you for stopping by, telling us all about what's happening in your precinct, but also what's on the radar for council in general. We really appreciate it and hope to have you back in a couple weeks.
Sounds good.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Sarah.
Sarah Cushing, of course, town councilor for Precinct 10.
I can hear you.
Some state lawmakers could see a bump in pay. To learn more about that, I welcome State Representative Randy Hunt. Randy, the proposed pay raise isn't really going to benefit all lawmakers. What can you tell me about this?
Well, this bill that we looked at yesterday and was passed with 44 people voting against it has a number of different parts. Part of it is for legislators. Part of it is for a subsection of the legislators who are in leadership positions, both on the majority and minority sides. And then part of it is for judges and trial court clerks, which is something that wasn't mentioned in the by the commission that put out its report a couple of years ago in December of 2014 at all. So that was a new piece to this. But as background, there was a commission that was put together by Deval Patrick in the last year of his administration to take a look at salaries of elected officials, which included legislators as well as the constitutional officers. That would be the governor, lieutenant governor, treasurer, etc., to see how the salaries of those individuals compare to other states and to the private sector for people that have similar responsibilities.
So, one thing that I'm curious about is, looking at the numbers, trying to figure out the numbers, because it is a little fuzzy for me when I read some articles. Reading that, let's talk about House Speaker Robert DeLeo. His salary would be increased not by a salary-based increase, but there really would be adjusting what he can spend on office supplies, say.
Well, no.
Is that how it worked? I'm kind of confused about how his salary bump is going to work.
I get that because we use the word stipend in two very distinct ways. One stipend that everyone gets who is a legislator is currently $7,200 a year, $600 a month, for an office expense stipend. That's for all of your supplies, the covers for your citations, the ink, the paper, all the kind of stuff. And people who have separate offices for their home districts, they may be paying rent, all of that kind of stuff. That is an expense stipend. Then there's the other kind of stipend, which is very different, and that is if you're a chairman or vice chairman as proposed of a committee, you would receive extra money. If you're the majority leader or the minority leader or several other of these floor leader positions, you get an extra stipend. But the difference is the office type stipend that we're talking about is included in your income, but it is not included when you do a calculation of any retirement benefit that somebody might be due if they have enough years working for the state. On the other hand, the Speaker of the House and the Senate President, those stipends of $35,000 currently annually that will go to $80,000 a year, those actually are just additional wages. And it's separate from the base wage, which is about $60,000, in that 60 grand is controlled by the Constitution, wherein it says there's a calculation that it goes up or down by the average household income in Massachusetts. Since I've been in, we've had 2 cuts to that and 1 increase. And net, we're up about not quite 2% over the last 6 years. So that base wage is something that everybody has, but then on top of that, they receive these stipends.
I guess
for those office stipends, those have nothing to do with wages. The leadership stipends have everything to do with wages, and they also calculate into your retirement formula.
Interesting. I guess one of the questions I have reading about this pay increase, so you said this was passed in the House with 40 legislators voting against it. Is that right?
That's right, 44.
So one of the questions I have is looking at the state rep salary, there is quite a discrepancy between, say, a state rep from Sandwich versus the Speaker of the House's salary. We're talking almost double a difference, really, right? Is that...
Yeah, well, if this goes through, and it looks like it's on its way, the Speaker of the House would be getting $142,000 compared to $62,000 for the rank and file members.
So why do you think there was not really any effort to increase the salary of state legislators? And I guess my question about this is because, 60 grand, a lot of these state legislators are working as if it's their full-time job. It's tough not to treat it that way when you're in that position. So how come we're not really thinking about these lawmakers as well?
Well, 2 things here. One is we are 6th highest state in paying legislators on that base salary in the country. So it's not like we're lagging behind when you look at comparisons to other states. The other thing is there is a piece in this bill that scraps the whole idea of legislators being paid for each trip they make to the State House, for which we self-report. And a lot of people have been accusing of padding their salaries essentially by getting extra per diems. But that aside, what they decided to do is get rid of that reporting mechanism and replace it by changing that $7,200 office stipend to $15,000 a year if you live less than 50 miles away from the State House, and to $20,000 a year if you live more than 50 miles from the State House. So that actually will take up all of the, it will get rid of the travel stipend, but kind of include it in this variable office stipend that would be $15,000 for the people who live closer and $20,000 the people that live further away. And keep in mind, a lot of people argue about travel stipends, but the guy who lives in, Western Mass that has to drive 3 hours to get to the State House, that person can't move to Boston to do the job. The person has to live in the rep district where he or she was elected. So there is some reason to be giving somebody a little bit more relative to how far away they are.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's how it's going to work. So the rank and file person that is not a chairman or a floor leader or anything else gets the $62,500 base salary and would receive either $15,000 or $20,000 on top of that for the office expense stipend.
Okay, well, thank you for giving us this update. I wish I could chat with you another 10 minutes about this topic matter, but have to go get some other news in before we end the show. But thank you so much for joining us, and look forward to chatting with you again in the near future.
Yeah, with you too, Sarah. Thank you very much.
All right, have a great day.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Our guest today, of course, State Representative Randy Hunt. Now we're going to find out what's happening around town in today's community calendar. The Centerville Historical Museum will continue its film series this Saturday. The museum will show the 1956 classic The Catered Affair, featuring Debbie Reynolds and Betty Davis. The movie begins at 2 and the event is free to attend. Movie discussion will follow the film with critic Anthony Ambrosio. Well, do you love to read about American history? The Hyannis Public Library has the perfect book club for you. The next meeting of the American History Book Discussion Group will meet in March. That means you're going to have plenty of time to read Mayflower, A Story of Courage, Community, and War by Nathaniel Philbrick. The CLAMS library system has several copies available in many different formats. The book discussion will take place Tuesday, March 14th at 3:30 at the Hyannis Public Library. Well, there are no board, committee, or commission meetings for the rest of the week, so everyone can sort of enjoy the remainder of the week. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We're going to be back tomorrow with another great show for you. Tomorrow, we're going to learn more about the Cape Cod Museum of Art. We're going to chat with HYCC General Manager Joe Izzo about the big Barnstable Falmouth hockey game next Monday, and we have so much more. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mantle.